Chapter 32. Conclusion. A lot is said about happiness, inner peace, enlightenment, heaven, love, nirvana, ecstasy, and joy. I said earlier that the purpose of life is to continue life. It is no surprise that the greatest physical satisfaction we can find comes from our sexuality or some imitation of it. It is also no surprise that to many people, the greatest emotional joy they find in life is found in raising their children or helping others who are seriously struggling, as difficult and painful as those processes are. For most of the world's major religions, perpetuating life into the eternities of the universe is the primary goal. They spend most of their time trying to teach their adherents to live sustainably good lives while setting up ideals to aim for. These ideals usually also happen to allow life to thrive on this planet, or they do this as best as imperfect people can. Just about every endeavor and action and ounce of energy we spend is our attempt at achieving the continuance of life or working towards that. Understand that this is a universal goal of almost every person you will ever meet. They are working towards that goal the best that they know how. It's usually only when we've been repeatedly unsuccessful at that goal that we quit and pursue simple selfish pleasures. When despair sets in and we lose that last bit of hope in anything good, we begin to hate ourselves and the rest of humanity. Self-loathing, self-harming, and the dislike of humanity in general is a sign of a mind that's having trouble finding things to hope for. If you can recognize this in yourself, use it as a sign that you need help. We all should want happiness or fulfillment. Nearly all of us want at least a bit of it while we're still alive. Some of us are willing to work towards receiving that fulfillment in the next life. Some of us were raised in a home that taught us that we were nothing, that we deserve to be beaten down and abused, that we are only worth the money, time, or energy that someone else is willing to spend on us, that the only joy in life is to be found in any cutthroat way you can get it, or something that stimulates any of our many senses and nerves as possible. Some of us weren't even raised in a home, as sad as that is. Some of our homes were more like palaces on the outside, but emotionally like empty tombs on the inside. When we are raised in that kind of an environment, our brain, our body, and our soul still yearn and need to feel all those positive things I've mentioned in this book. It will find anything it can that imitates, simulates, copies, or creates those feelings and hormones, and it latches onto them out of desperation, whether it's healthy or not. When we haven't been taught to watch out for those things, or worse, if it was those raising us who taught us to pursue those dangerous things, we are starting life at a disadvantage, in a trap, like being born in quicksand. Many people on this earth will not escape that quicksand. There have been and will be millions who will be born, raised, live, and die in a mire of self-indulgence, or born suffering the effects of others' selfish indulgences. There are millions who will only interact with other people in order to use them to satisfy a physical urge or financial gain and nothing more. That is the way of this earth and biology and life. Morality, religion, and spirituality exist to combat this natural decay. They don't always succeed, and perhaps even rarely succeed, but that they exist and that there are those out there determined to keep trying says something about us as a species. We have the ability to overcome our natural instincts, our base desires, our primitive animal selves. We can be more than just a biological creature. We can get better. We can improve. We can spend our energy helping others without thought of reward. Some cynics will claim that the promise of a heavenly reward is a selfish one. But since most of us never get a taste of heaven, I'll argue it's not much of an enticement, at least not for very long. Being unselfish and helpful for an entire life is really hard. What we truly can find is that the serving and loving of others is heaven itself, and we begin to look and hope forward to a heaven or paradise or enlightenment where all we can do is love and serve others and help them love and serve us in return. The hope for that kind of heaven or utopia is what drives us onward, to keep trying, despite the incredible numbers and statistics and history that try to show us we are failing. As we work against such an opposing storm, as we fight against the chaos and entropy that is integral to the universe, we see that beneath the raging storm of failure, suffering, and injustice are the safe and inviting homes, huts, and fires burning in cultures and people all across this planet. What we see as injustices are often the fuel for those fires. What we see as suffering is the fertilizer for the growth of magnificence. What looks like failure on the outside is the guiding hand of our universe determined to point us in another upward direction or away from danger, sometimes using us as the example of what not to do. Rest assured that most people are good most of the time. If this were not the case, humanity would never have made it off the savannas of ancient Africa. somewhere between the purely instinctive hunting-gathering phase of our species and the farming and domesticating of the earth, we gained something no other animal had ever had before. We have something that inspired us to be more than animals, and it has been fueling our progress ever since. We cannot see these things if we are lost in the storm ourselves, or if our focus is only on the destruction the storm is causing. Some of us will deal with droughts and fires, some with floods and hurricanes. Some of us will deal with cold, some with heat. Some of us will fight and struggle against a wilderness to scrap out a meager living. Some of us will be born in a soft and non-challenging paradise surrounded by comforts and luxuries and fail to develop empathy and understanding. Some of us will feel the crushing blows dealt to us by those who've lived under those trials, the reflexive lashing out of those born in harsh circumstances who aren't able to learn any better. There will be breaks in the storm. There will be times of calm. There will be peaceful moments. Unfortunately, as long as we live in a universe where entropy, chaos, and disorder are the final results, we will be fighting uphill. And the great news is that we have thrived as humans against all of it for thousands and millions of years, and for the last 5,000 years of our history, this progress has accelerated exponentially and shows little signs of stopping. Should our civilization ever collapse, we have the records, the information, the knowledge that will stick around to help us rebuild it and make it even better. I don't think humanity will ever cease working towards heaven. It is in our DNA, our environment, and our collective decision-making ability. Individually, we will struggle. Globally, we will struggle. That has to be the case. There is so much to learn, and each new generation has to learn it from scratch as well. Collectively, we're doing pretty good. There's a fable that tells how each of us has two wolves inside of us, fighting for prominence and domination. One is full of hope and light, the other full of despair and darkness. For most of us, these two wolves are evenly matched. Sometimes in our life, hope is in control, sometimes despair is. The moral of the fable is that the wolf that's winning is the wolf that is being fed. The difference between them is where these two wolves draw their power. Are we feeding our despair, or are we working to feed our hope? Despair will come at us from all sides. The natural universe will always tend towards decay and chaos. We don't have to go looking for despair or for food to feed that wolf. It will grow and strengthen purely on its own merits and the forces of nature. Going against the outward forces of nature, we have something inside of us that is both entirely biological and supernatural that can stir up hope. We can cultivate it. We can push against the forces of nature, dig deep inside of ourselves and create something new and organized from the chaos around us. We can build up what nature wants to tear down. Why we do this is going to be different for each of us individually. Sometimes it will be desire for financial or material wealth and security. Sometimes it's to preserve our physical, mental, or emotional well-being. Sometimes it's a hope for an afterlife. Sometimes it's just plain habit. Sometimes it's just what we were taught as kids and is all we know. Our motives will probably change multiple times throughout life. Use whatever motivation keeps you going at that time. As you grow and mature throughout your entire life, the pressures of life will make some of these motivations more relevant than others. That's okay. Keep creating. This creative process, this ability to shape and organize matter is what breathes life into us. It is what gets us out of bed in the morning and what motivates us to spend precious energy and calories as an investment to reap greater rewards later. If you need help getting out of bed in the morning, use whatever reason you can grab onto in the moment and let life keep sorting the rest out once you're up and moving and busy creating. Make conscious decisions when you can. The battle all of us faces is how to keep despair from growing stronger while feeding the underdog hope, with whatever scraps of emotional food we can find and cultivate in our lives to keep that wolf in the ring. Only by working and fighting that uphill battle for hope can we help each other and save ourselves, and we are not alone. Trust the rest of humanity that millions and billions of others are doing the same in their own way. Former drug addicts can learn to help others in ways that those who've not faced such difficulty can only dream of. Billionaires who need a new purpose or challenge often learn to quietly and secretly give more money away than most of us will ever even see in our entire life. Some of us hash it out online, trying our best to share our opinions and perspectives back and forth. The most effective way to accomplish this building and creating is in careful, stable ways, but no kindness is ever wasted, even if we don't get it quite right. On very rare occasions, we will need to violently tear down an old wall to improve a home, or pull out a cracked foundation. Sometimes we will need to revolt against a system in defense of our lives, our families, our homes, and our freedoms. The great most times, though, we are just redecorating, refining, and adjusting. Peace and cooperation, dialogue, win-win arrangements, and building each other up have the greatest effect almost every time. Sometimes we have no choice but to just wait and hope for others to resolve a problem for us, save us from the predicament we are in, or for them to solve their own problems when they've refused our help. Make life safe for others while you keep it safe for yourself. Respect boundaries while you pull down your walls. Help others do the same. Expand your views, especially when you feel like some problem you're facing is overwhelming or overwhelmingly bad. Neither are true very often, but when we are stuck in our own world or our own perspectives, they can seem that way. Finding a way to get away from addictive, isolating, or destructive behaviors and getting a clear head and control of our frontal cortex, our conscience, our body, and spirit will go a long way to help us empathize with others and gain a clear perspective of reality. The greatest superpower to humanity no one talks about is the ability to understand another human being in an amazingly connecting way, and we only get to have that superpower when our mind is clear. The good that hope can do is incredibly powerful. Sometimes it only takes one good deed or one vocal opinion to save a person or society from the downward spiral started by those who didn't know better. While one brave leader can break the ground for change, it takes a group or society working together to accomplish it and finish it. One person can start the change, and hundreds or millions more need to support it, and not just support it, but be that change themselves. When you encounter a dangerous animal in the woods, very often that animal is just as or more scared of you than you are of it. The reason a rattlesnake bites is to protect itself from you. The reason bears attack is because they feel threatened by you. Bees sting to protect their hive. The same is often true of people. Those that scare us are often just as scared by us. Those that make us uncomfortable are usually uncomfortable around us in return. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be brave, be bold, be gentle, and be willing to get better. Help others feel safe, and when they feel safe enough, they will almost always want to get better. How safe they need to be will be different for each person. Trust them while you carefully protect yourself and change yourself to become better. We all should be planting the seeds of positive change in our own lives. Those tiny seeds, spread out on the wind and multiplied by the tens, hundreds, and thousands, can regrow an entire burnt forest. They can reform a government or religion. They can inspire a nation. They can save millions of lives. Faith, like a tiny mustard seed, can end up moving mountains. You can change the world, one person at a time. Life is beautiful. I wish you well as you keep living it. The end.